team, welcome to the D.M.C Podcast, episode number 16, Deep in Mindfulness, with your host, me, Adam Rigby, and the kind, handsome, caring, genuine, muscular Cody Hunter. And today, it gives us great pleasure to introduce our VIP, our very intelligent person. So our guest today is a true national treasure, a man who went from world-class entertainer to award-winning IN-tertainer. He's co-owner of Awhi Yoga Wellbeing and creator of M3 Mindfulness for Children. He's an instructor, he's a teacher, he's a mentor. He has dedicated life to ensuring our children are not only kinder to each other, but more importantly, kinder to themselves. He is love, he is light, he is joy, he is hope, and he's Jase Te Patu. Welcome, my friend, welcome.
Thanks, bro. That's that's a nice intro. Makes me emotional already. Shit, starting off like that.
I've had the pleasure to meet you many times, and to try and actually edit down your life and your impact on a page is really challenging, and it speaks volumes to who you are as a person and what you are achieving as a person. So again, we are super grateful, overcome with emotion and joy actually to have the opportunity. So again, when Cody and I started this journey, you were top of the list in terms of people that I really wanted to talk to. I reached out to you, and again, gratitude for coming back to us and spending time with us. I know how busy you are.
Thank you, brother. The gratitude is shared. You know, I'm a true believer in sharing, I suppose, my story, because someone said to me when I was younger, if you really truly stand in your mana, Jase, if you really truly stand in your mana, it gives permission for other people to do the same. And so, you know, if there's ever a platform to be able to do this that's authentic and really speaks to my heart, plus, you know, I get to hang out with you, bro, and for longer than just 5 minutes at the gym going, hey, how are you?
I know, right?
Your class, etc. So thank you for having me here today.
No, absolute pleasure. We wrap into what's called our speed dating. So imagine, you know, we decided after the gym, because we'd be at our best, we'd both be flexing, vascular, a little bit of sweat, just enough of a glow. Hair would be perfect, new trainers on.
Still perfect, yes.
Yeah, still perfect. Meeting over a smoothie, a healthy one, probably, you know, almond milk, I'd say, bit of cacao in there.
I'm more coconut.
Okay. Noted.
Namaste.
And you're about to tell me just a little bit about yourself. Where do we start?
How long do I have?
You have as long as it takes, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet, brother. I'm a 47-year-old Māori man who feels like he's only just scratching the surface of what's possible in life. I'm driven mostly by my heart. Sometimes my head gets in the way, but that's okay. I'm human in that way. I have a love and a passion for everything well-being, being well in ourselves. That means taking care of physical health, mental health. That's really big on my agenda. Also, your spiritual, your heart health, how good your spirits feel in your life, which informs how you're connecting with other people. And I'm passionate about that, so passionate that I'm a teacher of it all. Adults, I teach children. And as I teach children, I realize I'm actually teaching myself. Like some of the things that I say to my students, like even today, I taught lunchtime yoga class. I was speaking about what yoga means to me. And it was a reminder for myself going, oh, bro, remember? You're telling these people, you got to keep practicing that stuff. We've got to keep walking that talk. The point of difference I have with others perhaps who are in this well-being space, because it's going off at the moment, well-being, it's on the lips of most people, especially corporates, and I see it in the school space as well. But my point of difference is that I look at it through a Māori lens, a te ao Māori lens. I'm a Māori man. I've been affected by suicide, so mental health, like I said, is on top of my list and my agenda, the way that I look at well-being. And lots of Māori men take their lives every year. Like, we feature highly on the suicide rates for men here in our country. Statistics wise, we have the highest statistics for male suicide in youth in the world, in the developed world, for ages 11 through to 18, and we're really up there with men as well. So yeah, my passion is to share well-being, in a short message, share well-being through my lived experience, through a Māori lens. That's me.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
I was just going to say, bro, it's awesome to be able to meet you. First off, wonderful to be able to meet you. I'm really happy that Adam connected us through here. I would love to hear about, because I have young kids as well, and which is so, massive learning all the time. And I'd be super keen to hear just a bit more about your M3 mindfulness, movement and how it represents. Does that sound going crazy through to you guys as well, or just me? We're good?
Just you, mate. You sound ruggedly handsome, gravelly, and strong as always.
Yeah, it was just double checking.
Great here.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about that, about your M3 mindfulness business. That sounds awesome. And if you could just fill us in a little bit more, it'd be great.
Thanks, bro. I suppose probably the best thing to do to start off would be to a little bit of backstory, because I'll start by saying I feel now in my life, having been on this earth for 47 years, I feel like this is why I've been put here. Like people talk about purpose, yoga, we speak about it as dharma. I really feel like whakapono, this is my real reason for being here on this earth, is to teach children. I'm the most alive. I've been a teacher now in the wellbeing space for 30 years, but really only in the last 3 years since I've been teaching M3 mindfulness do I feel like I'm actually making an impact, that all of my skills throughout my life have come together to this place where I get to share all of my skills, my performance skills, my facilitation skills, my skills of a practitioner of 20 years of yoga and meditation, all of it I get to share in this space and create an impact along the way. So I reckon it's to explain why I do and how I got into it. It's probably best to share the backstory. Probably going to cry.
That's all
right. So my little brother passed away 2.5 years ago. And I saw how it impacted my nephews and my nieces. And I'd been teaching yoga for 10 years at that stage. And yoga and meditation, there's bits that I'm missing out, but yoga and meditation saved my life. They saved my life at a time where I was really low, and low to the point of considering suicide myself. And if anyone has ever been there, that's nothing to take lightly. It's like the low point where you think there is no other way out from what's going on in your head and in your heart but to just escape it all. It's the ultimate in escapism from what's really going on for you. And so I found my way back from that dark place through yoga and meditation. And after my brother passed, it was really seeing how everyone in my family was dealing with grief, particularly my nephews and my nieces, and noticing how they didn't have any tools to deal with that utter trauma of dad not being there. And then that kind of sparked my inquiry around, mental health. I knew we had a mental health crisis in New Zealand. I was every year doing a Movember event because I had 5 friends pass suicide, And I wanted to, that was my kind of my way to bring about awareness of mental health and to share it through yoga, because that's what I was teaching. And I knew that what I had to say and what I had to share were tools to help people essentially cope with stuff that goes on in their lives. And I thought when my brother passed away, seeing my nephew and nieces suffering, I was like, fuck, I have some amazing tools that I can help them with. I started doing some more research into the wellbeing space for children. And I don't know if you guys know this, but since the year 2006, I always use this statistic because it's alarming. The use of antidepressant and anxiety medicine for children in Aotearoa, New Zealand, has increased by 80%. So what that means to me is that our children are relying on pills to deal with depression, which is a question mark already, because how are our children even contending with depression at such a young age? And then they're also having to take pills to deal with anxiety. Again, why are our children suffering from anxiety at such a young age? What's going on in our society? So I suppose activated by my brother's death and seeing how my nephews and nieces were not coping. And then I don't want to say inspired, but just more like, gosh, overwhelmed by the statistics of our children and them taking pills. I decided to create this program because I knew I had some tools that had saved my life, that I was helping others with at my yoga studio on the daily, like adults. I knew I had some tools that I could put together to help our children. And it's not just with anxiety or depression, it's helping our children to be present, to be with what's going on in the moment. Because depression is caused from focusing on things in the past and hanging out there in the past. Anxiety is caused by focusing and spending all your energy and time on what's to come in the future, which both of those things are not here now. So it tells me with the increase of kids taking pills that our kids aren't present. They are, but then they're often distracted other places. In the bare minimum M3, my program, which teaches mindfulness, teaches our children to be present, and then teaches our children to be present. And if they're not feeling okay, to be with that. Because a lot of us push it away or push it down, like men. We push it down. I don't know about you guys, but my koro, I was brought up with my grandparents, bless him, and he was taught by his dad. He'd say, suck it up, boy. Don't cry, boy. I'll give you something to cry about, boy. Push it down, hold it in. Now, fuck that. You know, what about if our children were able to learn how to be with the negative or let's call them bad emotions? Learn how to be with it, learn how to be with grief and not use other mechanisms to deal with the suffering. So that's how M3 came about, bro. It's my expression, I suppose, of, like I said earlier, using all of my tools. I get to tell Māori stories. That's the first M of M3. And I'm a storyteller. I just to be a performer, and I love to be able to tell our Māori stories, which have amazing themes like love, like guardianship, taking care of Mother Earth, like respect, like there's so many wonderful themes of stories, and then we tell it through movements. I get to use my professional dance and aerobics and yoga movement skill set, and then mindfulness. Like, to me, the mindfulness, like I said, has been the real savior for me in my own life. And mindfulness, the definition of it is to be present, to pay attention to what's going on non-judgmentally. And I feel like not just our children, but all of us, me included, can really learn those skills, learn those practices to be able to be with everything, good, bad, neutral in your life. And so I suppose I'm just providing our children with some tools to put into their kit so that as they get older, they're not thinking that taking their life is the only option that they have.
I've been touched exactly by that too. Jase, having experienced that what the health system has to offer. And I think what you're doing is remarkable, and the fact that you are taking on the mental part of the solution, because what I feel is the responsibility, saying to the millennials and the younger generation, you are the future, here is the problem, rather than solving the problem, giving them the solution and letting them forward and looking after generation after generation. So
you got it, man. It's preventative, bro. It's preventative. It's not a reactive, although it's kind of what it motivated me at the beginning. It's preventative, this program. It's like I'd go into with just this 1 year and 6 months of the school year, we've been in 145 schools so far, preschools, primary schools and secondary schools. And each of them are going, gosh, all of the teachers are saying, far out, we need to be teaching this stuff as compulsory. It's more important, some teachers say, more important than teaching the alphabet or numbers or building a house with blocks. I mean, that's all absolutely. But before that, teaching our kids to be present, teaching our kids to be here now in the moment before they learn all of those other skills, teaching them how to be emotionally responsive, not reactive, to soothe themselves rather than lashing out. Teachers are just saying, far out, this is so good that it's starting now and not as a reactive measure later, unpacking it when they're adults. Does that make sense?
100% it does, yeah.
I just wanted to share a bit on what you were saying before about, because from my own personal experiences, when I was 8, my father died as a fisherman. He got lost at sea. And so when you're talking about this, dealing with grief as a child, like, it was a very interesting way from my experience, how our family, our schools, and how everyone dealt with it. Number one, we went to school the very next day. We're sort of told to just like to school. And I remember just being like all emotional in front of my friend who's like, oh, my dad's in a helicopter. He's going to go look for your dad because he was lost. They never found him. So I just remember thinking like overwhelmed and being like, what's happening here? And just going to school, going to class. The memorial happened because he was never found, but we're all sitting there, me and my younger brother especially, we're kind of like, what is happening here? Like, is he coming back? Is he actually dead, or is he on an island somewhere? Like, are we? And then my mother, after that particular thing, she left because she didn't want to grieve in front of us. So then the 3 boys are kind of like back to school. We're getting looked after by an auntie. We're kind of doing all these things where it was never, ever worked on or dealt with or unpacked ever until we were old enough to try to figure it out ourselves. But yeah, like you're saying about tools and strategies and ways, there was never an opportunity to grieve ever for us. I mean, obviously there's a memorial, but as young children, I don't think I even cried. I just thought he was coming back on a boat with a beard and being like, hey, how you doing, son? I just got lost for a little bit. I come and see you. So I have a real, I suppose, a thing about closure now is something that I'm really not necessarily passionate about, but when I coach classes, when I'm involved in things, I like things to be clear beginning, clear end. I want you to know that like it's real, because that's sort of what we never got. And it was sort of, you have dreams about it for years. And so, yeah, I mean, those tools for kids I couldn't imagine what that would have done for us as a family as well. Could have, be very, very different from what we actually had. So, mate, I'm full support of what you do, 150%.
Thank you, brother. I'm really interested in what you just said. I heard you say that, you're all about closure because you don't get it. Isn't it interesting that this trauma, essentially, that happened to you has now become your gift? It's become a strength of yours that is now a skill set. It's the same, I didn't go into my brother passed, but essentially it was because dad wasn't there. and he hated Dad for ages, not because he passed, but just he decided to leave us. He abandoned us, essentially. And my brother didn't deal with that trauma of Dad leaving. And so it manifested in his head, in his emotions, in his heart, and mostly manifested physically. Like he was double my size when he passed, because it was his coping mechanism was to drink and eat and get so unhealthy that he paid the ultimate price with his well-being, because he could essentially because he didn't get to deal with early childhood trauma. Didn't, and I've had, like I said, yoga and meditation and my own personal work and seeing a therapist and all that to navigate my way through. Like, imagine if our children didn't have to unpack that shit. Imagine if they could deal with it in the moment and not carry it as literal baggage through their life that will impact not just them, but anyone and everyone that they come into contact with. I see that on the daily at Awhi. We call our yoga studio Awhi because Awhi means to embrace or to help or to support people with their well-being. And it's not just what people think about yoga. It's not putting your leg behind your head and doing the splits or fancy postures. In fact, the physical is the pathway into really just looking at how you're taking better care of your mind and your spirit. And I see on the daily adults unpacking their shit on their mat. I've had heaps of deep conversation like we're having right now with people like far out, and they talk about their childhood and they talk about all the stuff. And it's not that it's too late. That's because we can still do stuff about it as aware adults. We can deal to and heal from our stuff. But imagine if we didn't have to. Imagine if at a young age you were dealing with it in the moment, and then you didn't have to spend your adulthood trying to, get it all back again. So semblance of happiness or joy. Yeah.
And the trauma comes in many different shapes and sizes, because it's, it can be the trauma of just listening to your parents disagree. Sometimes it can be the trauma of the hustle bustle, the stress of life, the parents going quiet, not talking, not communicating. Trauma in each and everything that we can witness every day. And I know what it's like, Jase, because I remember the day that my father left us and he took us down the garden and sat my sister and myself down, and I knew he was going. I just knew it. I could feel it. And there's that overwhelming, as a child, I carried that weight for a long, long time because I felt it was me. I felt it was, he doesn't love me. I blame myself. My sister blamed my mother. And yet it wasn't till years later that I began to sit down and talk to my father and understand who he was and why he had to make the decisions he made. I didn't understand it at the time, but if I had the tools to be able to unpack that earlier, the impact that would have had for me for 10, for 20 and 30 years just would have been incredible. It would have been incredible. I'm lucky that I'm lucky that I've got to a space where I can express myself now, having a beautiful family and wife and two wonderful, wonderful children, and I make it my mission to provide care and love and joy for them every day.
And that's your gift, brother, isn't it? You get to be a father that your dad wasn't. You get to provide the love and the care and the attention that your dad didn't to you.
And nothing hurts more than seeing your children or loved ones suffer. Nothing hurts more for me, wanting them to be successful. But Cody and I, the art of the conversation, having the ability for us to talk about this and communicate and lose a little bit of weight and realize that we're not alone, that what we've been through, people share and they've overcome through a different number of strategies. And imagine someone listening, and there's people here that are 20 years old, 19 years old, in their mid-20s, starting their life. Imagine the quality of life. And that's something that I carry with me. Every conversation we have, the impact that this conversation and you, Jase, will have by listening to you talk about your story and sharing your gift and your courage will impact the next 10, 20, 30 years of the young ones listening and the quality of life. I just sit and it overcomes me. But I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to do it. And that's why I express gratitude for Cody every day for actually just kicking me in the ass and saying, bro, we've got to just put this in the World Wide Web.
Well, Adam, we talk about it, and like I said, Jase, so my son we don't really watch YouTube on tablets because of how much it hypnotizes our kids into like staring at these things, but we'll put it on the larger TV. And so I came in one morning and my son was watching videos of us on YouTube, and he's just sitting there watching them. And it was like this big, it's this like wonderful legacy item that Adam and I talk about, of like our grandchildren, our children, our families, everyone has these videos and these conversations to look back on. I was like, what are you up to, son? He goes, oh, I went to your channel and just started watching some videos. I mean, there's fitness videos, there's D.M.C Podcast, there's all sorts of things, but I was just like, wow, how cool is that? Because I don't have anything like that. I have zero moving images of my father to look at all, not a single one. So it's kind of, it's just such a proud thing to be involved in. If anything, my son has something to watch in the future as we grow old together. And, it's just such a cool thing to have. So, I mean, again, bro, to be able to share these stories and have you on here as well with us, it's just amazing. And we are grateful all the time. Sometimes you forget, but these sort of conversations bring it back, and you're like, yeah, man, this is awesome.
You're speaking my language, both of you. I'm really big on legacy. One of my favorite books is about the All Blacks and the legacy that they leave behind, and I think about that because my real role model in my life was my koro, my grandfather, and he was huge All Blacks fan, and kind of I took on board that too. I'm a huge rugby fan, All Blacks fan, but I really resonate with some of the learnings from that book. and one of them is like, leave the jersey in a better place. So I forget the words, the better place or a better way than what you found it, essentially. And that's what I want to do with the mahi that I'm doing. I feel like it's bigger than me. I feel I want to leave the world in a better place than what I came to it with. And if that means passing on some tools that our children will leave far beyond when I leave this earth, then that's freaking huge. That's huge. And yeah, you both are speaking my language. It's awesome. Isn't it interesting that we have, like, when I talk to my dearest, nearest, and dearest, the thing that we all have in common is, in some way, shape, or form, some degree, we all have essentially daddy issues. It's like something has happened with dad. And I hated my dad for years. He's still a dick, but I love him now, and I've forgiven him. We've healed from the mama and the hurt and the pain, because all adult now, I get to see this man that I thought was a monster growing up, because he left, similar to you, Adam. But my take on that was that he left and he abandoned us, and he didn't want us because he went and had another family and didn't adopt us. He adopted these other kids that weren't his. And so I've carried that through my whole life, man. I hated him. And I was angry. That was my expression. Angry and triggered all the time when people would let me down, because essentially my dad let me. And now I look back in reflection, I think, far out, what an angry guy I was. Now, people say to me, oh, I've never thought of you as angry, but I do. I'm glad some tools now that I've worked through that, and I'm in a better place for sure. But yeah, if our children can do some stuff, yeah, that can help them, like, amazing.
You feel like, that in the subject of books, my mission since Cody and I connected is to read a book a week, and I do that through backs, and audio books is one thing that I really resonated with, because I find that I have the time to sit down. So I've made it a challenge of mine to actually sit and read paperbacks, to find the time to do that, to feel the pages through to read, to soak in the experience, to smell the paper. But one thing that came up in a book that I was reading recently is the idea that schools are factories, and they're producing people into society, and now it's to consume. So we're passing on ideals, identities that are probably more specific to a bygone era. And the children feel that the education starts when they go to school and stops when they leave, when reality for us, as we know, we should never stop our desire to learn. We should never stop learning. So, you know, the elation when you go to, when you finish school, the first time you finish school, you're out, you can't wait, you're excited because that's it. I don't have to learn anymore. And then you realize, holy heck, I've got a lot to learn because life, there's so much more. And I think part of that is, you know, having the availability to teach our kids about emotions, about mindfulness, about empowerment, about love, about being kind, more practical tools, equips us for that continuation of learning outside of it. Do you feel like we've kind of, with the education system in your experience, because bear in mind, my children are out of school now, I guess, out of that environment, and I may talk to my experience now, but do you feel as it's too compartmentalized in terms of a box, too much structure?
100%. I've been really lucky to see the education system from early childhood age through to primary to intermediate and secondary school. Like, we just started doing secondary schools this year. We've been at Nainai College and Papakura High School for the last term and a half. And so I've been really lucky to see the whole education system. It's really flawed. And again, I get feedback from teachers saying it's so antiquated. It's the same as what we essentially had when we were at school. And yeah, there's this structure that, the way that I can sum it up quicker is I do personal learning development workshops for teachers, right? So I go into teach teachers about mindfulness and M3 and well-being, etc. And the biggest thing that they say is that they're burnt out, they're tired, they're overworked, they're overwhelmed. Why? Because they've got to tick all these boxes from the Ministry of Education to say that they're meeting this expectation, this expectation, this expectation. And so they're wasted. And I've seen it firsthand at the end of each term when I go in and I'm teaching the kids. The teachers are like, had it. They're over it. It's like, fucking bring on the holidays. I can't wait. And then when you get that 8-week holiday for Christmas holidays, it's like, yes, no more kids. Mm-hmm. So if that's the level of teachers, and I'm sharing this through the lens of the teachers because it tells me that the system is flawed. If that's the level of the teachers who are hoha coming the end of term, then they're not going to want to teach our kids. And so the quality of what's taught to our kids is diluted and flawed. So yes, the education system is too structured. And the other beautiful thing about that is, and we just did a New Zealand tour with them a couple of weeks ago, is as I've gone around the country, I've seen that actually people, some schools, especially in the rural areas, are just recreating their own curriculum. They're like going, oh, well, this is just a guideline and well, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. I'm going to teach to what I have in front of me. What do my kids need? They need to learn how to, because we're in a rural area, grow vegetables. They need to learn how to, when they leave here, they need to learn how to take care of each other, because they come from big families and the older brothers will need to, so there's social learning skills that they're teaching the kids ahead of alphabet and, all the other mainstream subjects. And the irony of that, not irony, the beautiful thing about that is that when they teach mindfulness, when they teach getting out into nature and gardening and all of those skills, life, let's call it, coping skills, let's call it, social and emotional skills, that the subject abilities, or their academic prowess is higher. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they're teaching the other way around, like the social emotional skills are coming last, the learning how to garden is coming last. at other schools, but at these smaller schools, they just go, nah, stuff that, let's teach to what our kids need. I find that so amazing. So they're basically going, if you to the education system, we'll just do it. It's working. It's amazing. And those kids, what last thing I will say is those kids, when we teach M3, they're the most respectful. They're the most present. They're the most engaged. It's so beautiful to see.
Hey, I think directly my experiences with education have been very similar, Jase, because from my personal perspective, I was always a creative brain, and I always did things a different way. So I never truly felt as though I belonged at school, because I wasn't made to feel as though I belonged at school, because the way my brain worked and the way I would do homework was different, and I was marked according to the box, rather than my expression of joy for learning through colors, through pictures, through doing things excessively. And so that shut me down. Yeah. So I lost my love for learning and education, and school became a negative place for me to be. And I think the biggest indicator of that was I muddled through to sixth form, or year 12, as they call it now. And we had the final English exam, and I knew that I had to pass that exam to pass the year. And fortunately, it was a creative assignment or assessment based on writing a script for a story, a little sentence that we were given about a boy breaking a window. So we had to break it down into almost create a vision board for a short movie, and I did that. Again, in my wheelhouse, creative, and I got the highest mark out of our year. And I didn't know that until people came to me and said, patted me on the back, congratulating me. So I got 97% out of my end of year exam, because it was in my wheelhouse, it was creative. But yet my whole experience was around, I wasn't good enough. Education was negative. I didn't fit in school. I was made to feel that way. So it's amazing how I was treated and my reaction to the way I was treated. And the second part to that is my daughter, my youngest daughter, is amazing. She's energetic. She is love. She's charisma. She is humor. She's everything you could hope for in a child. Caring, kind. But she's out there. Man, she is. I don't know where she gets it from, but she is out there.
Sure, you don't know?
Yeah. Mum. Okay, it's her mum. You made me say it. You made me say it. But we were actually at 7 years old at the parent-teacher meeting. I was told that she had to grow up.
7.
At 7 years old, and
what did you say?
I reacted quite calmly and reminded them that she was 7.
Yeah.
That she is beautiful, all the things that I've mentioned to you, that she is intelligent, she has a different way, and that's what makes her so great, and we should celebrate those things. And I said, just because she doesn't fit in that square peg, you need to realize what's great about her. And I think it just came to me that, as a parent, we throw our kids into the school environment, and we just expect that they'll be okay, that they'll go to school and they'll learn the right things. They'll learn how to be better people.
From the right people.
Yeah. But again, and I do feel for teachers as well on the other side of that, because they are year after year told that these are the restraints. As much as there are some amazing teachers out there who impact people in such a beautiful, positive way and make people want to teach, and that's the ultimate compliment, isn't it? Someone says, man, you impacted me. I want to do what you do. I want to carry on the legacy. Yeah. But unfortunately, the teachers must feel that weight too. So yeah, we've got work to do, and we've got more conversations to have. It's interesting, the experience.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I think it's changing. I think it's changing, and I've seen that it's changing, like those schools that are taking the curriculum and thinking outside the box. That's probably the best way I can describe that. That's so sobering to see and know that people are just taking the bull by the horns and going, this isn't working, guys. I'm going to make it work for our kids. And to that point around, well, what I will say is, and in my own experience, is that our formative years as people, young humans on this earth, set us up for the adult that we're going to be. And so if you've got, say, for example, teachers at school who are a positive influence, like I call it a pivot point. One of my pivot points in my life was I came from a really poor background. I was brought up with my grandparents. We didn't have shoes going to school. I'm not saying this, sharing this as a pity party, but I mean, it was just the facts. And one of my teachers, her name's Sue Watt, one of my teachers bought shoes for me and my little brother. And I remember, I can see her face, her handing me these shoes and just quietly doing it. I was in the classroom and she just handed me these shoes and said, this is for you and Milton, your brother. Jason, don't you ever let anyone tell you you can't do anything. I remember her saying that to me. That's one sentence in one moment in my life that changed the direction of my life. And so at that young age, if we are not set up well, because trauma has happened in our life and we don't have the right support systems, it can really impact our pathway for the rest of our life. The last part about that story is I really love that now I get to pay homage to Sue, because she's now a student at my yoga studio. She comes to my yoga studio, and I get to give back that love that she freaking gave to me. Yeah, those childhood years are super important, eh? They really are.
It's bloody tough.
Yeah, you got it. I was going to share about my little brother, is that he was always told that he was the naughty kid. Well, he wasn't always told it. He was told he was the naughty kid from one teacher. At the same time, I reckon, when we were about 7, when he was 7, that was when Miss Sue Watt gave us the shoes and told me I could do anything. She said the opposite. He got told, oh, you're naughty. You're the naughty kid in this class. And what do you do when you're a kid and you're super impressionable and someone tells you that? You live into that. So he became naughty. That was, super charming and lovable with the biggest heart, but naughty. His whole life.
Yeah.
So, mate, what? Sorry, bro, go.
Oh, no, I was just going to talk on that because I remember one of my first ever rugby teams I coached here in Christchurch 20 odd years ago. It was an under 13 rugby team. And there was one boy in that team who we got given the word about, like saying, hey, just be aware, old mate over here, he's trouble and you're going to probably have major issues with him, but we want to have him in your team. And, I went to university for coaching, so we're being assessed for all the stuff we're doing. And my friend and I, anyway, and he was a handful, and he was that kid that was, he actually was my neighbor as a 3-year-old when I grew up too. We actually knew him. There's a family connection there, really funnily enough. But the way I looked at it was like, well, okay, sure. Let's try to find out what his strengths are here. Let me double down on what parts of his abilities within this training in our game that we can utilize to our advantage, because obviously he's got this picture painted about him. The club's already said this, people have said this. And so I took it the other way around, and sure, he got a couple of chances on the side to have a bit of a chit chat. And in the moment I made him rugby captain of the weekend was the day he changed his entire mindset, and he never changed back. He was like, I was like, mate, you're captain this week. I need you to lead by example. I need you to stand in front of this team. You do the cheers. This is your team for this week. And his face, everything about him just changed. And I don't know where he is today, but that season we had no issues with that boy. And I knew by doubling down on what I thought was great and giving him some of those encouraging words, mate, it just changed them. And it was just a great learning. And like you said, that whole use of language, like the whole be impeccable with your word, we talk about that a lot with the 4 agreements.
Four agreements, yeah.
It's just like, you know, and we know it. And I was just like, wow, like just seeing like a switch, that's how powerful those words can be. And just a great memory I have that sort of showed what can happen in those environments.
It's so beautiful. You know, your words, that I'm big on language too. You know, I'm working at Naino College. It's a tuakana-tainer relationship. It's essentially, we teach rangatahi youth the teachings of M3 at a more age appropriate level. So we teach them actual mindfulness, actual meditation, actual breathing techniques. And then we teach them to the place where they in term 2 now, like right now, yesterday, they were in a center. They go into a kindergarten and they teach what they've learned to these young kids. It's broken choice. It's my favorite thing to do at the moment within the M3 program. And I got told, oh, you've got the trouble kids. Like, we're sending them to you at Naino College. And similar to what you said, bro, they were a bit of a handful, but I'm really big on, like, I truly believe that all people yearn for is a sense of belonging. And what makes us feel like we belong is being seen and being heard. Now, these kids, trouble kids, had never been asked, how are you? And in the first week, we do this exercise at the beginning of every session. Is we sit down and we do a check-in. We use the RAIN anagram, what do you call it? You know, letters, acronym. And RAIN is recognizing your emotion, accepting your emotion, investigating why you feel like you feel. If you feel sad or if you feel anxious, why do I feel like this? So that in your own words, you get to diarize it. We bought diaries and gave them diaries. And then what can I do to nurture? So if I'm feeling, example, anxious, I'm anxious because I've got an exam coming up and I haven't prepared for it. Well, what can I do to nurture this feeling of anxiousness? I can knuckle down at lunchtime and do some study, an example. So these kids that came to me on day one of them, his name's Xylon, he wouldn't even look up. He wouldn't even say his name out loud. He wouldn't say his emotions. He just sat down in a slump. Fast forward to the end of term 1, he was standing, speaking in Te Reo and owning his, like standing in his mana, really, truly. And the teacher said to me, because she came on that last day, what did you do? All I did, and Xylon goes, he asked me how I am, miss. He told her, he asked me how I am, and he listened. That was powerful. To see that young boy go from this to standing up, and then yesterday teaching these young kids is just phenomenal. You know, to the point of, if he was told that he was a naughty kid, he would have just acted up. But here's someone who's gone, like, I don't care. I've been naughty in my life. I'm taking you at face value, present moment, present tense, right here, who you are now. And I see you. I see you, young man. It's powerful what impact your words can have for the positive and for the negative. Hey.
Yeah, I remember at our college, they used to call it X block, and X block was where all the naughty kids went. So again, they were put in a building. So how are you going to interact and feel knowing that you're labeled? You know, and we're great at that, aren't we? And history repeats itself by atrocity after atrocity, and that's no different. Labeling people and impacting how they feel about themselves, and will continue to feel about themselves and how they interact with others in the future. And that's a significant weight to carry. I'm so delighted to hear that things are improving on that front. And school is part of the puzzle, isn't it, mate? School is part of the puzzle. And it's
True.
every interaction that we have with a child, whether it's our own or someone else's, we need to take the responsibility to show them that there is love, that there is trust, that there is hope, that there is light. We've always tried to treat our children, give them with responsibility, allow them to make mistakes, support them if they may fall, and they always know that they've got someone to hold their hand, to pick them up. Talking to Glenn Ostergaard, who you know, Jase.
Yes.
And breaking down the myth that he isn't a robot, but he's a man who hugs his kids and kisses his kids and tells them he loves them every single day.
Beautiful.
Every single day. And that's something that we should all aspire to do. It's a super emotional journey. And I think one thing too, like, you know, if we talk about the fitness industry, you've had a lot to do with the fitness industry. I remember years ago in Cuba Mall, when Les Mills was in Cuba Street.
Showing
there.
our age, brother.
Yes, mate, you were the go-to. The outfits were great. the outfits, not much to the singlets, and
it was barely a singlet. It was a rag.
but you were the person that inspired my wife to get into group fitness, because of the energy that you gave her and the feeling you gave her and the liberation that she felt. And all I can think about is when I talk to people about you, and especially in the yoga space too, their hand always goes to their heart. And that's the level that you impact. And knowing that Justine has dedicated herself to helping people each and every day, and being a positive role model and having an impact in helping people is part of that legacy. So I just want to congratulate you on not only where you started, but the continuation of growth that we're experiencing. And I think, you know, no, you're welcome, a hand on heart. The fitness industry, aren't we great at, you know, walking into an experience, and if you look at ticking the boxes and saying, but they don't do that, but they don't do that, but they don't do that, and yet here we have a room full of people that are communicating, that are energetic, that are full of love, that are full of life, that are there, present in the moment. And that's what I say to people. If you go in, what are you looking for in that environment? What are you truly looking for? If you're looking to tick boxes, maybe this isn't the space. But being present, for me, you know, I used to think it's just focus on one thing. But when I really truly felt present is when I started to open myself up to experience everything. And I almost collapsed inside myself. It's a weird sensation. I've been not trying to replicate it, because when your mind blocks it, then you lose the moment. But being aware of everything, the sight, the sounds, the smell, the feel, and always, I think with you too, I feel as though you're very receptive to your environment and all of the energy.
Yeah.
And it's something that you emanate, but if that's the right word to use. But how did you go from this extreme entertainer on stage, this outward presence of complete entertainer, and then to draw all of that in through those experiences, but through the yoga, what was the biggest thing that really drew you in to that moment where you think, yep, I have presence, I have sight, I have sound? Does that make sense? I hear what
you're saying. It totally does. And I resonate with all of that. So much to talk to there. You know, brother, I would say another pivot point was at my 40th birthday 7 years ago. And my friends, like, what comes from when your dad leaves you, and you create this limiting belief of I'm not worthy or I'm inadequate, is the sense of my gift became, I will prove that I'm worthy. I will prove that I am adequate. And that came what happened from that is that I became excellent at everything that I did, and I wanted to be the best at everything that I did. I won a scholarship to collegiate in Wanganui. I represent New Zealand in 3 sports and did all these amazing things, blah, blah, blah. I get to my 40th birthday and it's in Sydney, and my friend flies over from New Zealand, and I'm in the Lion King, right? And she goes, "What are you good at now?" And I was like, "Oh, what's that mean? Am I that guy? Am I that guy that does all these different things all the time?" And she goes, "Yeah, but not just does it, but becomes the best in New Zealand at it." And I was gobsmacked because I never thought of myself as that guy. And I was like, fuck, he sounds like a dick. and she goes, "Oh no, I love him. But you're always striving. And that must be exhausting." And I was like, oh my God, yes, it's so fucking exhausting. It's like someone had given me permission to calm the fuck down and stop and stop. And at that stage, I was really into yoga, and I was teaching in Australia, and I was doing really well in Sydney, and lots of people in Sydney knew who I was as a yoga teacher. And it was a real wake-up call. It was a real pivot point for me. So I dove more into yoga. So my answer to the question is, what I realized through diving more into yoga is it was quite an internal, like taking a good look at myself, why I was striving, why I was proving to the world, what was I proving? And the answer was, I was trying to prove to my dad that I was worth it. And we hadn't healed our relationship at that time. So that was the short answer to that. And that actually it was further than that. It was proving to myself that I am adequate, that I am worthy. And then through diving more into yoga and meditation, which as the listeners would know if they've done meditation, is it made me just really see my thoughts, see my patterns with my thoughts, see my reactions. And long story short, it made my journey of life and facilitating be less about me and more about them, more about my peeps, more about my students. And so, yeah, less about what others thought of me and more about how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? Which has really been for the last 8 years, my passion is how can I help you? And sometimes to my detriment, like I want to help everyone. And even my therapist said, and here's your pattern again, be careful that it's not you're doing this to prove yourself to people. So I'm working with that balance. But brother, I really love what you said about I'm very receptive to my environment. I feel like I've become a better facilitator, a better teacher, a better speaker, a better person, essentially, because I'm super present and aware of everything that's going on in the room. I can see, like, I have 40 people at my yoga class this morning. I see them all. I even call out people's names and go, I don't say I see you, blah, 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 I see you, blah, 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 but I acknowledge if I see them do something or that they've got it, that they've got, yeah. And to your point about, when you talk about mindfulness, yes, is focusing. And for some people, the beginning is to focus on one thing. But eventually, I love how you described it, Adam, is that mindfulness has been able to widen that scope and take in everything without it overwhelming you. A good place is to start just on the one thing. Yeah.
And how do we do that, mate? How do we do that? If someone was starting on the journey, where would you start them? Like, if you look at the M3 model, is it as simple as starting with just sitting down and breathing?
Well, that's interesting for children because, no, for children is the short answer to that. Because for children, you can't just get them to sit down and go, okay, guys, we're doing mindfulness, sit down, breathe. They'll just do that. What what is special, I suppose, about our program is that we engage the children first through telling them the stories, through expression of telling the story. Then we engage them even more physically. So we've got 3 ways of learning: visual, oral, and kinesthetic. And we cover all 3 of those ways of learning. And then with the movement, especially the young fellas who have this physical energy, doing the movement, and movements like balancing on one leg or closing one eye or closing both eyes, works on their proprioception and their relationship to things in space. So it's focusing them. So from the word go, we do a karakia, we tell a story, we do the movement. We've got them to a point where they've been focusing on one thing, so that when they sit down at the end and do the breath and meditate and a little relaxation to finish, they're ready. They're ready for that. So you kind of go through the stages where you go from sympathetic nervous system to relaxing the vagal nerve. It's when I put it together, I was like, oh, I think we should do these things. And then seeing it in action is like, far out, it really works. Even with like 2-year-old kids who are like, when you get there, by the end, they're like, it's choice to see. So to answer your question, kids can't just sit down and breathe. For adults, the easiest way is to breathe. But I would say to those people who don't know much about mindfulness, there's so many ways of practicing mindfulness. And for some of us, especially if we've had deep trauma in our lives from a young age, sitting down, closing your eyes is very traumatic, because it can send you into that space of your head where you brings back memories, etc., that aren't those traumatic memories. So things like that are more active, like in Buddhism, there's a mastery technique of making a cup of tea. You got to be super present and wait and be patient for the water to boil. You've got to be patient for the tea to steep to the perfect temperature, the perfect strength, and then sitting down quietly drinking the tea. Gardening is a mindfulness practice. Walking is another mastery practice for Buddhists, mindful walking. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just sit down and breathe. That's a easy way in for most of us, but for those whose mind's super active, activities are, it's not the what, it's the how.
Massive
I
fan
love
of
that.
walking.
Yeah, sorry, Rory, because I was going to say the same thing. It was what I used to prescribe to people. I called it active meditation, because I know that a lot of people found the sitting still, especially I coach a lot of men, right? So a lot of men, often it's trying to get them to sit still for 5 minutes and just, downshift is really difficult. So I was like, go for a walk. Go for a walk in nature, 60 minutes per day. That's all I want you to do. And so it's been one of my favorites. And as Adam knows, we do it. I mean, in my programs online, I make everyone, part of the program is to do 30 minutes per day in nature. Try to walk every day. Go for a walk, enjoy it. It's so good. So another one I was going to say actually was my first experience with kind of getting a little bit more mindful. And I remember this really well because it was years ago. I lived in South Korea for many years, but I went to a yoga class, which I don't do. If you meet me face to face, you realize I'm a very stiff, muscle-bound ex-rugby player. Like, I'm pretty useless. I'm the guy, when you walk in the room, they give you like 4 blocks to sit on to go cross-legged because they know you can't do it. But anyway, during the class, and I was, doing what I need to do, but at the end, when we were all laying down and everyone just, lights out on your back, shutting everything down. And I just remember sitting there and they're guiding us through this last 10 minutes of, just being shut down. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is amazing. And I remember thinking also, no one's running for their cell phones. No one's trying to get out of the class. No one's running away early. It was just purely, everyone was just in the moment and just completely relaxed and breathing deep and letting their mind just wander. And that was probably one of the first experiences I ever have of trying to, learn more about that sort of, obviously mindfulness and meditation and all those sorts of things. But yeah, sort of a manipulation of the work first, getting through things, stretching, and a bit of a workout for someone like me. I need to work out is what I thought you need.
Yes.
And then finishing with that was perfect. If I'd have been told straight up, lay on the background on your back and we're just going to do some breathing exercises, I probably would have done it because I was there. But yeah, just like you were saying with the kids, I'm kind of like one of those.
Yeah. Oh, that's most people though, bro. That's what most people come to yoga for is the physical, straight away. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, "Oh, I'm not very flexible. I'm too muscly. I've got, I don't know if you know, but the All Blacks and the Hurricanes come to our studio, and I know that person because I'm helping them with their blocks and their bolsters. But at the end of it, like I always ask people as they come out, like, how are you feeling now? How are you feeling now? So that they can get a gauge of what it is that shifted within them throughout that 60 minutes of yoga practice. Now is the key word. And I've had one lady, and probably I was counting how many students I've taught. I would say I've taught over 100,000 yoga students throughout my years. One person has said, I feel worse. And everyone else has said that they feel better. It's again, it's not about the what, it's about how you allow yourself to by the end fully be present. And we've got to do some things before we be.
And I love what you said about the cup of tea, because today directly I applied that, because I went to see my mum, and dear mum, she's 86, and as her hearing fails and she slows down a little, she's a wonderful, wonderful woman, one of the strongest woman I'll ever meet. Does anything for anyone at the drop of a hat. And so I went to see her, to sit down and to spend some time with her, and she asked me if I wanted a cup of tea. Now, I don't drink tea, but I said yes, because it wasn't about drinking the tea, it was about sharing the experience with my mum, about doing something that I know that brings her joy, and being able to connect with her on that level and just sit down and sip a hot drink and share time with her. And I was aware of it, and that's the being present in that moment. If someone says, do you want a cup of tea? I'm like, oh, nah, don't feel like tea, don't like tea. It's like, yes, I'd love a cup of tea, thank you. Just a little bit of sugar to make it taste less awful. Just to sweeten it up, but to sit there and share a cup of tea with my mum as the years disappear. Because we know, when we're young, we think life is infinite, and it's until we experience loss as our loved ones depart that we know that it's not, it's finite. And as we find ourselves in this space, as we all do, to make an impact each and every day that we live our lives, to try and help as many people, and not only make today better, but tomorrow better, and every day after. And that's something that I think you do wonderfully, Jase.
Thanks.
You do wonderfully. So a question I have for you, mate, and we've asked all guests, and you are lucky number 3. You are lucky number 3. If you were to brush past your let's say your 10-year-old self in the street, and you could stop and connect and say a couple of things, or impart 3 little pearls of wisdom to that 10-year-old self, what do you think that would be? What do you think those things would be?
It's a great question. Definitely listen to your heart. Definitely listen to your heart. It's all heart-driven things, brother, really. Listen to your heart. Learn to love yourself. Really learn to love yourself. Which, going further to that, is not to care what other people think. And then the third thing would be to spend more time with your family.
the one thing we never really have enough of, eh? We chase it. We chase it, we hold it so dear. Why is my battery saying what? Please don't run out of battery. Don't let me down.
It'll be the first time, mate.
Yeah, I know. We've been down this rocky road before, and we are. Oh!
Did we lose you?
We're back. Woo! It was close. Okay. No, we're back. We're back.
We're back, buddy. We're back.
I feel you on the time, and I feel you on the family, especially watching my kids grow up, and we think, oh, geez, it'd be great the day that they leave, and as they get closer to that day, I never want to go through a day without them by my side, and that's for me.
Beautiful. That's
for me to work out and to have the faith to let them go, knowing that they will want to come back, not holding on to them with the fear that they won't. So, beautiful chats with my oldest daughter to say, this will always be your home. Yeah. We will always be your home. And to tell them each and every day, whether it's via text, we have no excuses, peeps, everybody that's listening or watching. We have no excuses. Technology can be a hindrance sometimes, but it can work in our favor in terms of the positive impact and the connections we can do. And if there's someone that you just want to say that you love, or say hi to, or say, are you okay, then fuck, do it.
Yeah.
Use the 100%. Moment. Act on it, because the universe comes to you, and you may be thinking of that person. We've talked about it before, Cody? The universe may have put that in your mind, in your heart, for a reason. Maybe they need you. Maybe that's a moment that they need you, and act on it. I'm a big fan of it.
It's great.
So, Cody's go, bro.
I was going to say, it does happen, bro, where you do exactly what you're just saying, and they go, oh my God, I was just talking about you the other day, or I was just thinking about you. And you're like, oh, great. Well, finally, we get to catch up. It's just such a beautiful thing, but it happens heaps,
That happened yesterday to me. I've shared with you that I've got 9 trainers, but we've got some work coming up where I need 3 more trainers. It's a good problem to have. But I immediately thought of 2 of them, and one of them was in Wairarapa and one of them was in Wellington. Yesterday, it popped into my head at the beginning of the day, and this woman out of the blue, I haven't talked to her since October last year, goes, Jase, I'm just reaching out to you because blah, 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 blah. I'm like, far out, you're kidding me. You must have, in a way to a way, you must have felt my vibes. I kid you not, on the same day, I went into this clothing store and I was like, oh, I'm on my way to teach class. I need this t-shirt, need this t-shirt. And I've got a minute. Okay, I know where it is. I know where I'll go straight there and I'll get it. And I walk, and that second guy that I thought of as a trainer is standing there after I've just been talking to this woman. I'm like, oh, wow. Thank you. I believe my grandparents are always looking after me and my little bro. And I'm like, oh, thank you. It worked out exactly how it should have. When I don't believe in coincidence. I think it happens. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I think the universe will serve you if you allow it, if you don't get in its way. And that's what we do. We overthink it. We do. We shut ourselves down. We close ourselves off to being present, to being aware of everything. And it's that energy, it's that wave that flows through us. It's like the river around the stone that engulfs it, continues to move and flow. So I feel you in terms of, I just, for me too, just stop cock blocking myself and allow myself and allow myself to just be in those moments and express the joy and the love that life has to offer.
Beautiful,
amazing, Jase. As we start this up, I mean, there's so much more about, man. Honestly, I could just sit and listen to you talk for days on end. But we do, respectful of the time that you have. I just things before we get into the little drills and a couple of questions and a little bit of wisdom to impart on our listeners and our viewers. How can we become part of your mission? How can we help? Is there advice that you can give us to go forward? Are there things, is there something you can go to assist, to help? What can we do to join your mission, to share your mission, to share your vision?
You as listeners, you as people, you as parents. Yeah. Well, I'm about to create a focus group to lobby for the government. You know me, ads. I just I do things big, big thinker, and it's to bring mindfulness into the curriculum as part of the curriculum. So
Wonderful.
Bringing on psychologists, children's psychologists, bringing on all of the researchers in the space, mindfulness programs that already exist, so that we are a collective of people who can show and prove that mindfulness can help our children and our youth. How can you help would be to, right now, is to ask your school to have M3 at your school. I believe, in looking out in the market, it's really affordable. In fact, I've been told that I'm not charging enough, but it was never about the money for me.
Of course.
I feel very privileged that that I'm in a position to do this and not get paid what other people are getting paid in that space. So that's a way to support. But also too, I really truly believe in the trickle out effect. As parents or even teachers, I say it starts with you. Like, do the work on you. Do the work on you, so that everyone and everything that you come into contact with is being touched by your light. And I'm speaking to Converted with you guys because you do amazing things, and you've provided this platform to share amazing things and wisdom with people. So you're already doing that, bro. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to celebrate the fact that you are also, your commitment to share our beautiful history and our beautiful language, and the care that you show for that, and the respect you have for that, and the importance that has, because it's our story. It's all of our story, and that's something we as New Zealanders need to embrace. It's our history, and we need to learn from it. And I just want to say that the way that you are doing it, to celebrate it, and to know that the children, and the hope that your children will tell the same stories and sing the same songs and speak what is a beautiful language and learn more about what is a beautiful culture. I just want to commend you again and celebrate that.
Thank you, brother. I feel that there's some amazing wisdom to be had in our Indigenous cultures, not just here in New Zealand, but in the world. I lived in Australia for 12 years. And I got to see that how terrible the native and Indigenous people of Australia were treated. Their language isn't even acknowledged. Like many years ago, they were categorized fauna, like what the hell. So I feel very privileged in New Zealand to be able to still be able to speak our language, to be able to share our stories in a mainstream environment where it's not being dissed or gotten rid of. It's acknowledged and honored. So I feel privileged in that way. But thank you. I'm still on my journey. I have to share that with people. I'm still learning my reo. I'm still doing it. Like I've still got a ways to go. But going back to what you said earlier around staying, continuing to learn, that's probably one of the things that I've dedicated myself to. Is if I'm in the education space, then I must keep educating myself. I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to research about mindfulness and the way the brain works and the way the body works and the way body-mind connection works. It's continuous, and I'm going to continue delving into all that.
And it's inspiring, mate, because we should always, all of our guests say one thing: we should always continue to be curious. We should
100%.
always continue to be learn and have a passion for learning, and that's what we're teaching our young ones, right? Have a passion for learning. Obviously, everything around you, but everything inside you too. We need to sit down and learn more about ourselves, what makes us tick, and what makes us uniquely wonderful and perfect in our own way. One final thing, my friend.
Yes.
And it may be morbid to some, but we call it our tombstone drill. And as the day comes, many, many years from now, as you depart from this world into another, what will be, I guess, the one thing that your hope is that people will say or share about the time you spent? What will the stone say?
I don't think that's morbid. Saying this will give clarity, I suppose, to my purpose. I would say something like, Jase was a man of heart who gave, lived, played from his heart. Something along those lines. And something with the words aroha definitely would have to be, because obviously people know that aroha means love in Māori, but I wonder if people know that it actually means to turn and be in the presence. Aro means to turn, be in the presence of ha, of someone else's breath. Ha means breath. So when in Māori, it's deeper than just I'm in love with you. It's I'm turning to share breath with you. And that's my way, without words, that I am expressing my love for you. That's it. Because everything that I teach, if you were to drill it right down, one thing would be to teach people to breathe.
The way that you've expressed, wow, the way that you've expressed, just explained aroha, because it's a word that a lot of us use, but to hear it spoken in that way is just a wonderful way to finish this part and open up the next chapter. For us, I just want to say, Jase, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for just your investment in the youth. Thank you so much for just sharing that wonderful heart, that wonderful mind of yours. And I just feel better knowing that there are people like you in this world with a commitment that you have, the energy and the love that you have, and it gives me hope.
Thank you.
I wish you best of luck. I wish you all the love in the world. I just want to say again, thank you so much for being part of our deep and meaningful chats. You will always have a home with us. And next time I see you, just expect to be wrapped up.
Oh, I always do when I see you, mate.
Expect to be held.
Love it, Jase.
And I can't wait to connect with you again.
Yeah, just want to reiterate what Adam says. Appreciate it, mate. And what he said earlier, I could just sit here. I felt like I was just watching a YouTube podcast as a viewer, just sitting back, and just every word you say and the way you present was just soaking in every word, mate. And I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk with you here today. It's been amazing. And I'm really interested in what you're doing. Obviously, I have young children. All of it's great. So I'll definitely put your name towards our school committee and get you over here at Wigram Primary School. No, but yeah, thanks so much, brother. Appreciate it all, mate.
So, and, team, if you do see Awhi yoga and well-being, please take the time to go and see these people. They are connected. It is real. It is true to them. It is part of their purpose. And if you do have an opportunity to share the M3 mindfulness for children, then please, what's more important than looking after the future of our youth, of our nation, of our country, and our well-being?
Thank you.
Yeah, overcome with joy.
Can I share? This is really simple. With whakatauki and Māori, say, it's a short passage, maximum meaning. And it says, Poipoia te kākano kia pua wai. It means nurture the seed, nurture our young ones. Kia pua wai, so that they can bloom. That's what I think my mission is.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful, mate. Thank you so much.
You're the man.
Whew.
All right, everybody.
Holy.
DMC crew, thank you all for tuning in today in this episode. Totally epic. I cannot wait to edit this thing and get this thing out to the masses. Thank you, Jase, again. Thank you, Riggers. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Love and respect, everybody.
Respect. Peace. Be kind.
Peace.
Peace.